I'd like to talk about repatriation solutions. That's plans for very widespread, wide-scale remigration, deportation, repatriation of the foreigner, I would say the invader population in this country. And I'd like to, and I want to do that because I'd like to encourage other people, you, to start talking and putting it in writing, messaging about how it could be accomplished, how it could be achieved. What are the possible methods? What are the shortcomings and strengths of possible methods? And I'd like to encourage people by saying that all plans are worthless. All plans are wrong. Mine, yours, other people's, everyone's. Plans are worthless, but the process of planning is absolutely priceless, because particularly if you put it in writing, because that strips away a lot of the rhetoric, a lot of the, oh, why don't they just do this, I'd just do that, they ought to just do that. It gets rid of the letting off steam, and it encourages us, people, to think about the possibilities and the difficulties and how all the different elements and the ingredients might fit together. Now, there's a military phrase that no plan survives first contact with the enemy. I sometimes put, everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the face. And that's right, that's what happens to your plans. So don't worry if it seems no good or if people say it's no good. Actually, having done it means you've done a lot more than other people. We're going to need these plans, because when this blows, when it all blows apart, people will pick up the plans that they find just lying around on the ground. So doing that work now actually will have an effect when it comes to it. Because if you don't have any idea about what you're going to do when the time comes, it'll just be chaotic anger, and that tends to be bloody. So try and do your plans. Now what I want to look at is plans that other people have put forward and that they've suggested to me, and I want to give my reaction to them. I don't want to belittle them again. I am really grateful to these people for at least trying, putting it together and seeing what they can come up with. Now, here is one from this fella, that's better, from this fella Paul Hawtrey, and he said, quite modestly, he said, I don't have a plan as such, however, and he's coming up with ideas. And first of all, he says, ban halal and similar practices and sale of products, stop paying benefits to migrants immediately and end free housing for them, no more mosques, close large mosques, voluntary repatriation, and then he goes down to ban all Sharia courts and absolutely no laws except our own laws recognition of marriage restricted to Christian and civil marriage as performed under British law, absolutely no polygamy. Now, I wonder if this is more of a, it looks perhaps motivated more by a wish to reduce the status and influence of Islam as a religion in this country. I don't think this plan would achieve very much in the way of remigration. I think it might mean that the depressing sight of officialdom, the Church of England and politicians sucking up to the religion of Islam, that might reduce. I think that's its main effect. So banning halal and similar practices and sale of products. First of all, I don't know how you ban it. People will just slaughter it in their own living rooms, their back gardens. I mean, there's plenty of that goes on each Ramadan. Every time Ramadan rolls around, we see pictures of back gardens littered with sheep and goat corpses. And so you probably, how do you stop Ahmed from buying a sheep and just cutting its throat in his back garden or in his front garden? And in any event, Muslims are allowed to see that they don't have to observe Islamic law or Islamic traditions when they're on the jihad. So if it was banned, they could be told that's all right, you don't have to eat halal meat as long as you carry on the jihad. So I don't think that would have really any effect. Stop paying benefits to migrants immediately and free housing for them. That might have some effect. I think it's a myth that all foreigners and invaders are here simply for welfare. Take and deny them welfare and they'll go home. I think most of them are here because Britain has a dismal economy that is shaped to have a high demand for low-level employment. So what you have is it's a low wage, low skill, low productivity economy, which is attractive to a lot of foreigners because they have low skills. They provide low value, so that they can come to compete. I think digressing into the economic sphere, I think particularly the process of loose monetary policy, of QE, quantitative easing, of pumping money into the economy, printing and lending money into the economy, that has enriched asset holders at the expense of ordinary wage earners. It has suppressed their wages. It has encouraged. It has devalued labour. It has encouraged a low-skill economy. Now that's attractive to a lot of invaders because they can come here, they can fit in that low-wage economy, and they can earn 20, 30 times what they would back home. Perhaps, well, I might here. I'll just turn to. This, I think, is a problem that underlies the whole of this situation, and that is relative GDP per capita. What you can earn, what you're worth in your country. Now, this is nominal, so that's basically the bottom line, how many dollars you earn. It's not purchasing power parity, that's economics for excuse makers. Okay, so a dollar you earn here is a dollar you can spend in Pakistan. So if we go to the United Kingdom, where's the United Kingdom? It's United Kingdom. That, according to I think who's that? That's according to the IMF, World Bank, and United Nations. So you have three figures there: $51,000 per person per year, 46,000, and another 46,000. Okay, so let me. If I look for Pakistan, hold on, I have to do a search. Now, Pakistan, that is 1,400, 1,600, and around about 1,500. So I would say that that's about 1/30th, 1/33rd of GDP per capita in the UK. So in Pakistan, you are worth, the dollars you can put in are about 1/30th of what you can earn in Pakistan. I mean, that is dire. Let me go. This is quite fun, so I'll do this one. Let's go to Afghanistan. Okay, Afghanistan, they're 422, 356, 373. So I'd say that's about $375 per year. That's what they earn. That's I would say that's about 125 or GDP per head in the UK is about 125, 130 times that. So what you get in Afghanistan. So there's a big pull for people to come in just to work. And the welfare is gravy, and scamming the system, that is gravy. So let me go, let's say Nigeria now. Nigeria, hold on. Yeah, Nigeria, that's 1,100 and 2,100 and $2,000. So it's between $1,000 and $2,000 a year. So that's between 25 and 50, 1/25th and 1/50th of what you can get in the UK. So I could carry on like this, but that's well. Let me try India, because that's been the big one recently. So India is 2.7, 2.4, 2.2. So somewhere around, I suppose, 2.4, let's say $2,500. I would say that's about 1/20th of what you can get in the UK. What 1/20th? So I think now you need to bear that in mind, because that also has relevance when it comes to the issue of voluntary paid repatriation. You're going to have to pay people a lot of money. I'll come back to that in a minute. But initially, if you stop paying benefits, they're not going to go. If they can get a job delivering kebabs or running a taxi, you're way wealthy. You can still send home enough money to support 10 people and barely feel it. So people are going to stay here. That's not going to get rid of people, just simply stopping the benefits. I think the benefits do come into the picture, but there is another issue. If you are going to say you're Muslim, or you're simply a foreigner, i.e. you're not ethnic British, therefore you're not eligible for welfare or social housing or anything like that. You can't walk into an NHS hospital, you can't have an NHS doctor. Then to do that, you are going to need a very hardline radical government elected on a landslide majority. And just to bring on a downer, we have just elected by a landslide majority in Parliament, not by the votes, I'm sure Starmer thinks he's very popular. We have elected a Labour government. It has a landslide, an overwhelming majority in Parliament. So how we get from that to a very, very hardline radical landslide nationalist majority, well, that's going to take a long time. In the meantime, there's going to be a lot more immigration, so I don't think we can rely on that. So no more mosques, close large mosques. Well, I've been stopping mosques getting built. I'm on about 101 with a few in the pipeline, and that has correlated with a massive increase in immigration. My work has had absolutely no effect. If you were to try and trace any correlation, you would say my work stopping mosques has come in tandem with has been the cause of more immigration. Therefore, I've got to stop what I'm doing for the good of the country. So, I don't believe that. But closing large mosques, people will simply have mosques in their front rooms. They'll call their pals round. The local authority will grant them the run of the sports centre for the whole of Fridays. I don't think that's going to send them back. They can say their prayers in their bedrooms. They can say their prayers. What did they do in lockdown? They went on Zoom, I guess. Exactly the same as that. It's not. They didn't go home during lockdown, and they're not going to go home because of that. Voluntary repatriation. Well, we already have that. You can go home if you want to. I think that what that means is paid repatriation. And again, the earnings differential, the GDP per capita. The real GDP per capita nominal, that is that means you can't pay them enough. Let's say GDP per capita in the UK, say roughly $50,000, and let's say the average age of an invader, an immigrant, is say 35. Let's say 40. That means they've got another 25 years at least on the clock. So 25, let's say 20 to keep the math simple, 20 times 50 grand, that is a million bucks that they can earn in that time. So I reckon you're going to have to pay them at least a third of a million, probably $500,000 for a male to go. A younger male, oddly, will need to be paid more, I think, because he'll say, I've got more years ahead of me. It's like an injury compensation claim. You just work out how much per year and add up and multiply it by the number of years, and then work that out as a commuted sum. And we can't afford to do that. I have a problem with paying people to go. I don't see why we should have to. I don't think we should have to. It's our homeland. We can do what we want with it. They have theirs. We're entitled to ours. Secondly, if you have to pay people to go, that is a drag on motivation. That means people will lose their motivation to effect repatriation if they're going to have to pay to repatriate people out of the country. And that means it's unlikely to, people will make excuses not to do it if it means they're going to lose money, because that money has to come from somewhere. Okay, finally, ban all Sharia courts. Okay, Sharia courts, I've got to tell you, often just, it's not what you and I think of as a court. A Sharia court is some beardy weirdy sitting in the back room of a mosque or in the back room of some bookshop, basically saying, no madam, you can't have your divorce even though your husband beats you, go home and keep getting beaten. Okay, that's a Sharia court. And recognition of marriage restricted to Christian or civil marriage. Again, there are plenty of Muslims who they conduct their Sharia marriage, they don't register it, and then they say this is not someone I live with. And the lady says, I am a single mum. So she then claims single mum allowance, and he might have 4 of those dotted around the town, and he goes around to each of them and collects the money, because they're getting single mother allowance, not a married mother's allowance. And it wouldn't stop them carrying out their Sharia marriages, and it wouldn't. What this would do is have the effect of excluding Sharia judgments from the arbitration legislation to say it forms no part of arbitration. I think that's right. It should form no part of arbitration because it's contrary to basic human rights legislation. But all that would mean is it wouldn't be recognisable in a court. It wouldn't be enforceable. But Muslims have their own enforcement mechanisms. It's called the community, i.e. Bombarding people with violent texts and putting the windows in. So that's how that gets enforced. I don't think this would have any effect on numbers. I'm afraid I've got to apologise to Paul Hawtrey. I was rude, which I tend to be, and he put that to start anyway, and I said no, it isn't. I hope I've explained it. Paul, I'm sorry I was so rude to you. Thanks for having a go. I want more people to do what you've done. It doesn't matter if your plan doesn't work, you've done the planning. That's the priceless thing. Okay, now the next lady is this lady. Her name is Susan Chetter. And I asked her if she'd come up with a plan, and she did, and she said there are, let me see if I can zoom in a bit there. There are 3 steps. Not sure which order is best, but this can be done in a mutually beneficial way, as I'm sure everyone concerned with it will be happy in the long run. The deportation of all immigrant criminals. Now, I'm going to take a wide interpretation of that. I would guess that's basically any foreigner, even if their ancestors arrived in 1950. If say, the great-great-grandchild of someone who arrived in 1950 commits a crime, we can deport that person. I think that might get rid of about maybe 20% of subject to them being caught and then getting convicted, going through the court procedure, and then going through the deportation procedure, perhaps deportation court proceedings. That might, I reckon, that might possibly get rid of 20%, assuming there are no roadblocks. Again, I find that a little bit fanciful in that. Supposing you get a Pakistani third or fourth generation, he commits a crime that's a bit more than road traffic, and you say, right, he's out. And Pakistan says, no, we think you are breaking international human rights law. We're not going to allow him to be repatriated back to Pakistan. We won't allow the plane to land. Then what do you do? Is that, how do you get around that? Maybe do you dump him in another country? Do you pay another country to take him and you just chuck him onto the airport tarmac in that other country? Possibly. I think that would prove to be kind of more complicated than is made out. As we'll see, as I'll explain in a minute, I think we are much better getting the foreigners to want to be repatriated, getting them to do it themselves, because then you're swimming with the tide. And also it means you can be much tougher about them. Not only do you not have to pay them, you can, if they've committed wrong, you can extract property from them, as I think we should do. I think remigration should be profitable to us, because that will make it happen more smoothly, with less violence, and I think it will make it, we will be much more motivated to make it happen if we realise we can profit by it. Okay, so the second one is an immigration referendum. Well, I'd be all in favour of that. I think there probably would be a majority saying we want next to no immigration certainly from third world countries, Africa, India and Muslim countries. I think people would say that people have no incentive to allow it at all. It just makes everyone poorer, degrades our life, which is why the politicians want it. The politicians want to do it to us because it makes us more dependent, it makes us easier to rule, it makes us more ground down. And the easier we are to rule, the more manageable we are, the more power they have over us. So it increases their power without them having to actually grab more power. It increases their power by making us more powerless. And they want it, whereas we don't. That's why they keep forcing it on us. We let them do it because we want them to keep giving us the welfare. We're worried that if we get rid of the mass immigration and the third world human rights, the minority rights in this country, that might threaten the idea of welfare rights. So I think you might get a majority of people calling for almost a complete halt to certainly to third world immigration to this country. But that doesn't affect repatriation. It doesn't get rid of people. And then encouraged repatriation of others. I think encouraged, again, that means paid repatriation. I just don't think there's the money. If currently, according to the 2021 census, which I take with a pinch of salt, I take all government figures with a pinch of salt. I think most of them are just one made-up figure passed to the next chain in the hierarchy, who then massage it again, pass it up the line to the next link in the chain and massage it again. So by the time it gets all the way to the top, it's been massaged so many times. It has no relation to reality. And the little I know in my own area of work over the years, the way numbers have been certainly within planning, the way numbers are gathered, I find is really, really shocking. It bears no relation to reality. And but the 2021 census says, I think 74.4% of the UK was white British. I'm sure it's a lot less than that. I'm sure it's a lot less than 70%. So that probably means about 15 or 20 million people who need to be repatriated. Now, if, let's say, a third of them are working age males, and you're going to pay to a third of them, that might be between 5 to 7 million. You're going to pay them $500,000, third of $1,000,000. That's going to be, well, you can do the maths, how many billions, trillions that's going to be. We just can't afford it, and we shouldn't have to do it. So I think that's unlikely to work. What I think is coming. I'm grateful to Susan for doing this. I think she's head and shoulders amongst a lot of the rest of us, because she's actually trying to come up to apply her mind to the idea of planning. What this does is to highlight the difficult issues, so we can address those early. Even if her plan is not any more useful when it comes to it than mine, it is the process of planning that is effective. I think you've done a good thing there, Susan. Okay, what I hope is coming through here is my view that using the coercive mechanism of the state to affect remigration is inefficient. It means you have to spend money. It means you have to, you're creating resistance. You have to use methods that you don't like, methods that we are uncomfortable with. So you might have to use armed force. There might have to be a certain amount of brutality in doing it, because you'll be dragging people out of their homes, putting them in holding camps, dragging them kicking and screaming onto airports. We don't like that. I can see a lot of people losing morale, losing motivation for that. It costs money just employing the soldiers, and paying for the airplane tickets, bribing the airport on the other end, Karachi Airport or the Mogadishu Airport, to receive that airplane. This is all cost. It's all money. These are all reasons why we might make excuses to lose heart for repatriation. I think using the coercive mechanism of the state will prove to be an uphill battle, and I think a really bloody uphill battle that will fail. I suspect France might do that simply because France has greater adherence to the state. It likes the state authority more, particularly its army. I can see its army getting quite involved in running the state and then trying to use coercive methods to achieve it. And those methods proving to be pretty brutal and not that effective. Okay, I want to move to the next one, and that is Steve Laws. Good guy, Steve Laws. Steve, I'm not trying to give you a hard time. Steve has thought this, I think has really thought this out very well. He's put a lot of thought into it from the state point of view. I suspect he may have heard some of what I've said, and he's thought, we need to find a way to make this manageable. We can't just go steaming in on day one with the Marines saying, you get out, at the point of a bayonet, at the point of a gun, with a tank marching people down to the harbour. I think he realises that's the logistics of that are not going to work. So he has his 7-stage plan. And so what he says, now let me just zoom out a bit. The 7-stage plan, I would expect the nation to fully support mass deportations overnight. Sorry, I wouldn't expect the nation fully to support mass deportations overnight. It takes time. Yeah, he's right on that. We just voted in a Labour government with a huge, steaming great majority. Okay, so I think the 7 stages he's talking about here, I think they are directed at encouraging the British population to be more motivated, giving a staircase that we can follow, that's quite easy to get on board with at the beginning and has manageable increments until we reach the desired goal. Okay, I'm not sure I agree, but I honestly want to try to give it a fair hearing. He might be right. My idea that the state's going to break down, I could be wrong on that. You never know. All right, so stage one is easy. Deport all illegals in the system and close the border, legal and illegal, remove all benefits for illegal immigrants, refugees, asylum seekers, etc. So yeah, I think that is straightforward. People would be on board with deporting all illegals. So anyone who is an illegal immigrant who's come by boat or come by airport and just said, right, that's it, I'm claiming asylum, I came here illegally, but tough, then they get sent back. No sympathy for them. Well, you came here illegally, that means you're not, we don't have to consider any asylum claim. Now, the numbers there, I would say, we don't know. The government won't tell us how many are coming in each year, because they won't tell us how many are coming in via lorry, via the tunnel, or via airport. They say that's confidential. We're not allowed to know that. That would be too upsetting. It would be too dangerous for us to know that. But we know the numbers that are coming by boat. That's about somewhere between 35 and 50,000 on the rubber dinghy invasion. So if we say it's about 100,000, maybe 150,000, and according to, I think, the Migration Observatory, don't know who they are, they say it takes 21 months for an asylum claim to get processed. So assuming an illegal claims asylum, that's his route in. I don't know what other route he might have, but that's going to be the main route. So set foot on shore, that's it, I want asylum. And 21 months, and if that's 100 to 150 a year, that's going to be somewhere between 200 and 300,000 people that you can get out of the country right away. There might, again, you'll get an international outcry because it's going against these international agreements about claiming asylum, or some of them, and the bent authorities in the other countries might say, no, we're not receiving them. We want your country invaded. We're not receiving these people. So removing benefits from illegal immigrants. So that would mean illegal immigrants, they're on the street basically, they're having to beg or get charitable help. Some of them, I think, then might be encouraged. It's very difficult. I can't really judge. You'll probably get a lot of silly left-wing charities coming up and, I don't know, giving them food and tents, is my guess. Okay, then number two, deporting foreign criminals. Again, I'll take a wide interpretation. That's anyone who's not British. So even if you go back to World War, if their ancestors came after World War II and they've committed a crime, presumably anything more than a parking fine or a speeding fine, then they get deported. And I would have thought roughly that would be about 20% of foreigners in this country might at some stage. Now it depends, and you might say if someone was guilty of shoplifting 20 years ago, 30 years ago, would that give you the power to deport them? Okay, again, I don't have a moral objection to that. I would like to see that, but what you'd need for that is a very hard line government in place with a landslide mandate to put him to do that. You are creating a two-tier citizenship system. You're saying that someone like me, I can commit any crime I want, and I might get thrown in jail, but I won't get deported anywhere. Whereas someone whose ancestors weren't British, depending on which country they came from and when, they could be deported for a slight crime. So that's, you would need. We're nowhere near that level of political consciousness yet. And just to show you this from Steve himself, the average Englishman, this is a separate tweet, the average Englishman supports their own replacement, and I really don't know how to change that mindset. It's our greatest obstacle. I think that's true. The thumping majority that Labour got, a lot of people voted for Tories. Reform, who basically, I think, I would say they are multiculturalists with Union Jacks on the table. That's Reform. They have stolen the nationalist vote. I think they're going to keep it for certainly another 5 years, probably quite a bit more than that. And What I think that relates to is what we are really focused on, what we want, is the welfare state and the economy. We want to be able to have things paid for us, particularly the NHS, free medical care, but free other goodies, pensions and unemployment benefit, etc. And that mindset, the mindset of entitlement according to your identity, that runs through, or rights to have things according to you, that runs through welfare rights, as does the mentality that society is bad, society is wrong, society is defective because it has made me poorer than you. Therefore, I have moral indignation on my side, and that moral indignation justifies me forcing you to give me money and money's worth and things. And that kind of mindset, you see how that marries up with the mindset of immigration. Again, I'm entitled according to my identity. I'm poor, I'm poor, I'm unfortunate. The world is wrong. This society is racist. It is unjust. Therefore, it is right for British society to carve out a niche and to make allowances for foreign invader populations. Those go hand in hand. If you get rid of, it goes to deep, subtle mindset, the idea of entitlement and rights. And that persists to this day. And Labour got elected on the back of it. So I don't think we're going to get to that position where we just deport all foreign criminals. How much immigration has to happen in the meantime? When is that likely to happen? When are we going to elect a government like that? And all who've entered illegally, regardless of when it was, that they return, and you return refugees. So I guess that would mean if an illegal, someone entered illegally in the 1970s and they then got the right to remain, you could deport them. I guess that wouldn't allow you to deport their children and grandchildren, who would stay here and would have every incentive to stay in order to be able to send money home to granddad back in the old country. What kind of number? Again, that would require a very hardline landslide government. What kind of numbers? I don't know what numbers have entered illegally. I think the percentage, I reckon, is probably about between 1/8 and 1/4 of the total immigration number. So again, that might be another, or an overlapping. Ones who've entered illegally, would they be more likely to be the ones who committed crimes? Possibly. But that might be between maybe around another 15% you could get out that way, very rough numbers. Assuming, again, you can say, that's the one who entered illegally, we're going to find him and we get him out, there's no roadblocks, and all the bureaucracy and procedure goes without a hitch. Okay, regardless of cost as well. Immigrants on benefits and not working, I think people will simply stop claiming benefits. I think I certainly think invaded populations love working the system, getting the benefits and scamming the system. That is gravy, but that's gravy on top of the main meal. The main meal is the employment that you can get here, I think, for most people. If a foreigner realises he's going to get deported for claiming benefits, he'll stop claiming benefits. So I think you might have to backdate that and say any foreigner who ever has claimed benefits, then probably I doubt there are many who have never claimed any benefits. So really that's the same as saying we're going to deport the lot of them. Okay, that goes to the final step 7, forced repatriation. So I think most of them would say, right, they would stop signing on, they'd stop claiming housing benefit, they'd go and pack themselves in and rent a bedroom off their cousin and live like that. Okay, any foreigner working against our interests, that could say firebrand imams, Muslim pressure groups, immigrant pressure groups, the Muslim Council of Britain, I'm guessing those people. I'm not sure the numbers would be that great. I think most of them would stay under the radar. I'd say probably more than 95%, maybe 98, 99% could stay under the radar on that front. Okay, 6 can be done at any stage. Voluntary repatriation with financial incentives in place to encourage them to leave. Again, I went through that. I think you'd have to offer a third of them, working age males, you'd have to offer them, I'd say, about a third to 500,000 based on GDP per head. To go back to the dirt holes they originated from, or their ancestral dirt holes. And I call them dirt holes for a reason, because they don't want to go back to dirt holes. They don't want to go there. It's filth, there's crime, the people are just horrible. Well, go onto YouTube, look at living conditions in those countries. Okay, then, and also I think women, although they're not earning, would they want to go back to Pakistan? And Pakistan is such there's an epidemic of the murder of women. It's not counted because it can't be, because so many women aren't allowed out. And when a man is caught, he doesn't get tried. If he goes to jail, he's let out within a year, gets a hero's reception when he leaves jail. The system is set up in somewhere like Pakistan to murder your wife for any reason at all, just because you want to. So I think wives would be kicking and screaming about that idea as well. How much money do you have to pay them to go back to certain death? I don't know. Finally, forced repatriation. Now again, this is where I come back to my view that using the coercive power of the state is likely to be pretty tough, pretty difficult. It creates all kinds of drag on our motivation. I did a video about this here, if it'll come up, my page. Hold on, I need to go down quite far. This one, it's called Brute Force Won't Work, and I'll get to it. That one there with the picture of the tower block, because what I envisage is if you have the Marines trying to comb through that tower block to find out who's a foreigner, who's not, and then grabbing them to take them to the deportation camp. Now, let's say you got a 25-story block. I can't remember how. I think that was something like 25-story. That block in Leicester. And I just chose Leicester pretty much at random, and then found out what tower blocks it has. That might take 3 days, and how many soldiers' lives are going to be caught? How many IEDs would have been prepared on the stairs, or how many? I don't think they're able to knock on the door and kick the door in, because it might be wired for explosives. They'll probably have to mouse hole their way through, I don't know, through the front wall or the front window if they're lucky. And all of that is high cost. There's all of that being on cell phone as well. That's a drag on motivation. I struggle to see that really going to completion. I think it is much better, I say it again, it's much better if we have a situation where the foreigners, the invaders, want to repatriate themselves, and where it's profitable for us to do so, to engage in wholesale, widespread repatriation, where there are potentially large amounts of money in it for us. I think that will make it much more peaceful, because I think if people are doing it motivated by money, I think people are probably not going to engage in the butchery, because it's greed and not brutality that motivates people. I don't think sending in the army, sending the SAS is going to do it. It'll take too long, it'll cost too much, people get sick of it. So let me go to the next one. Now this is one that I found interesting. This came up tonight. This motivated me to get on with this video. Now this is a fellow called, sorry, I should just say a last word about Steve Laws. Again, Steve, I hope I haven't been mean to you. I very much respect what you've done. You're doing the right thing. Besides the sterling work you do in other areas, documenting the rubber dinghy invasion, documenting the migrant camps over in Calais, standing for election, far more than I've done. I have no right to trash what you're saying, and I hope I don't appear to do so. You are coming up with solid planning there. I take a different point of view. That's what I'm trying to say. But again, permit me to congratulate you on having done that. All right. Now, this one I like. This fellow called Uber Boyo on Twitter. Now, what he's come up with is what he calls a DNA passport scheme that can grant you access to a European system. Now, what I think he's saying there, now if you give me a second, is that we have a kind of, I think, a private legal system, a private system of order that Europeans, and only Europeans, can gain access to via a DNA passport. Now, I think a DNA passport seems very workable to me. If people are comfortable with the intrusive nature of it, or the loss of the loss of personal freedom, I would have thought that DNA testing is going to become so widespread it ceases to be more private than you getting your face in the paper in time. So I think a DNA passport, that would be a good way, a really good way to regulate entry to systems like this. And what he's saying, he talks about the European system that is spread across the globe. It provides access to gated European communities worldwide, private schools, you have security firms and police forces to take care of them. It gives you a passport, it provides a currency and banking system like Revolut. I don't know what Revolut is, but I'll deal with the banking system. Now, he deals with the premise and the problem that the Western world in its many states are becoming nakedly hostile to people of European descent. Yep, second that. Okay, so globalized nationalism. What he says, his premise there, what he's saying is, well, he uses the Jews as an example. He says they're a nation, they remain part of the Jewish nation no matter where they go. I think in general that's true. They've existed for 2,000 years without a state, and this is a DNA, kind of DNA based concept. So, and I think he's proposing something similar, that so we cease to have regard to the idea of a homeland. We regard ourselves as belonging to a group that's a kind of a diaspora. We become a diaspora with a high degree of in-group preference and a cohesive diaspora. Now, I'll come to that diaspora idea in a minute, but I think the central part is where he says it will provide for security. So these next 3 or 4 paragraphs. As nation states get to the point where they won't protect Europeans, how do you guarantee security? You pool resources to fund private gated communities, security forces and private schooling systems. These could be all across the globe in many territories and only accessible if you're a citizen, i.e. if you've got your European descent DNA passport. This would be more like a religious system that operates the way international Christianity, Islam or Judaism operates, but it's DNA based. So I'm not saying you abandon states, politics and territories, the above religions don't. Instead, I'm suggesting you facilitate a way to improve the safety of Europeans all across the world with these tools. So what I think he envisages there is you buy territory, you buy gated communities, you buy your own services, which I guess would be governed by your own rules. Effectively, you form your own law, which you can then opt into voluntarily. You have the right of access to it because you are of European descent, and that is tested by a DNA passport. You don't have to, but you join it as individuals join it. So it's an opt-in, opt-out, vote with your feet type system. This is quite similar to what I put forward. I think where I disagree, well, so I like this. I like the basic idea. I think a DNA passport seems fine to me, although I haven't delved into the implications of that. Seems fine. I'm comfortable with that from a moral point of view. And I very much like, and I have advocated for years and years, this idea of an opt-in, opt-out system that privately caters for security and other sort of welfare provision like schools and I guess healthcare as well. You just opt in and pay your subs. Now, where I disagree is I don't think this needs to be diaspora based. I think we can do it here at home. We can simply, and I think this will happen. This is my system. What I think is likely to happen, what we should do, is when the state breaks down, as I think it will when the welfare state breaks down, and under the weight of mass immigration as well, and the conflict it engenders, I think we should then, we get up private legal systems. So I will put forward a written legal code that people can opt into, basically because you need law in order to be able to trade. You need law in order to be able to show that you are law-abiding, so other people will tolerate you living near them, so you can be allowed into a neighbourhood, to buy property in a neighbourhood, to live next door to people. And so I think this is similar, but I don't think you need to resort to the diaspora international rootless system. You can simply say, we're going to do this in our country. I think if you do that, what will happen is immediately no English person, no ethnic English person will have any incentive to allow pretty much any foreigners, any invaders at all, because they are crime prone, very hostile to us. They're bad earners. They're not entrepreneurial. They tend to be parasitic. They harm us. They drag us down, and they create degradation, like defecating in your front garden, like that fella on Twitter that I saw recently, or just going out stabbing schoolgirls. So we would have no incentive, or the rape gangs, no incentive to allow that within our system. So I think that would separate out the populations, and I think the foreigner invader areas would plummet into terrible, very conflict-ridden, destitute, disease-plagued conditions in no time. And on the back of that, I think those people would then want to go. They would then say, hold on, let me do. I think that they would then say, we want to leave. And I would advocate on that basis, yes, you can go. We're happy for you to go. We want you to go. By the way, the property, the land and buildings you have, that's ours. You can't enforce your rights on them. You are outside the legal system. If your property is enveloped within land that we own, you can't get to it. You can't enforce your rights against us. We don't recognise any law you have. You are not a member of our legal system. You can't enforce your rights against us. We can occupy it. Once someone has occupied it for 11 years, 12 years, they have possession of it, or that they have ownership of it. We can take your property off you. That is a way that we can profit by it. I would also favour profiting. I think that the criminals amongst Muslim populations can provide a very useful pretext to go to their brethren and to say, we now want you to compensate us for what they did. Their crimes were horrific. They're in the form of war crimes. You are now going to pay, and you're going to pay a lot of money for that. Otherwise, you won't be allowed to go. And so, if we can make it profitable, it encourages us to do it, to be thorough and complete about it. I think that is what is likely to happen when the state breaks down. And if I go back to, so I don't think we have to rely on us doing this on an international basis, where we have no relationship to a land, to a homeland. It's simply to each other, sort of travelling around the world. I don't think that's necessary. Now, this bit about the banking system, I don't see why that's necessary. I think we would set up our own banking system because we're so much more entrepreneurial. I don't think the blockchain, I don't think Bitcoin and other digital currencies are going to be the way, simply because it's far too unstable to act as currency. Would you, if I was your landlord, would you let me set your rent in Bitcoin? I doubt you would, because if Bitcoin goes up 10 times, you're bankrupt. I think we could simply use gold, and I think why not? There's no reason for us not to trade with foreign populations, for instance, for raw materials, if they're willing to supply them to us. I don't think it's, in order to maintain complete remigration within our own homelands, I don't think we need a separate currency. I think we'll naturally come to dominate the currency anyway, because we will be so much more wealthy. But I like the idea he's coming up with. It is thinking outside the state. He's actually thinking outside the homeland, but that is then, I think, causing him to think outside the state. I'm saying you can have a homeland without the state by, again, I say it again, by private systems of law that we can opt into and opt out of by voting with our feet. And we will rush to do it because law is a primal human need. Submission to law, that is a human need. Okay, that is Uberboyo. Please give him a follow. He's put a lot of thought into this, and seems like a bright fellow, a bit brighter than me. He's come up with really a really thought through system on issues that I think he knows a lot more than I do about. So he could be right and me wrong. Also give Steve Laws a follow. Oh dear, hold on. There he is, that's Steve Laws. And give her, Susan, a follow. And give old Paul Hawtrey, I feel so guilty for having been so rude to him. But they've done a good thing. Please, keep, just have a go at thinking out a plan for mass repatriation. How would you do it? You're Prime Minister tomorrow, you're shoved in the hot seat, and people say, okay, we want to get rid of everyone. How can we do it? Give us a plan. Just put it in writing. Or your plan, it'll be wrong. My plan is wrong. When it comes to it, it won't work. But the planning means that what we want to do will be that much more successful. So please, put your mind to it. That's what we need to do now. Thank you.